Hello everyone, it's time for another live look at the astrology. My name is Katie Sweetman, and this is your look at the astrology for October 20th through 26th, 2025. So we are actually going to go into Scorpio season this week, and I actually wrote about this in my newsletter. I was like, how is it Scorpio season? I don't know how time is for you. I think it's aren't we in June? But anyway, we have Scorpio season this week. We actually have three main topics that we need to cover Scorpio season. Neptune is returning to Pisces. And that's part of this, part of these outer planets that have all been changing in 2025 into 2026. We'll come back to that. And also, we have a Libra new moon tomorrow on the 21st. So let's just dive in. For those that don't know who I am, my name is Katie Sweetman. I'm an astrologer and psychic medium located here in the rolling hills of central Maryland. And every week we gather live to talk about the astrology. You hear me say it every week. The astrology is 50%. You are the other 50%. So each time of the year brings us to a new zodiac sign. And just as an aside, of course, you can always book a consultation with me because it's really helpful to get more into the depths of your own astrology. And don't forget that you were born with your own map. That's one of the reasons why I'm an astrologer, is to remind people that they are born with their own map. And I realize not everybody has their exact birth time, but knowing your birth date at least is a good start. So you can go to my website, empoweringastrology.com. So let's talk about the astrology this week. We first have a Libra new moon on the 21st. So that's tomorrow at 8:25 Eastern time, Eastern Daylight Time. And a new moon, it brings us to a new lunar month. And we have a new lunar month each month. And a lunar month is 4 weeks, just like a regular month, but it follows the lunar calendar, so a little bit differently than our solar months. And if you really want to understand astrology, really follow the lunar calendar, really follow how the moon moves through the different signs, the new moons and the full moons and the eclipses, because that's really where a lot of the astrology is happening. So to have a new moon on some level, yes, it means it's a new lunar month, but it also means that we've stepped into a period of time, over four-week period, that will be lived through the lens and the archetype of that zodiac sign. So, for Libra takes us into a sign that is about relationship and connection. I know Libra is a lot of things, but it's what's called a cardinal sign. It's one of the four cardinal signs. It represents, to me at least, as an astrologer, one of the four pillars of life. And Libra reminds us that as human beings, as social animals as we are, we're not meant to do life alone. And so when we can find the balance between Aries, which is I want, I need, I desire, I'm going to go after and get it, but being able to learn the power of compromise and negotiation, and being able to figure out how do we find the balance between the two things, because to understand a zodiac sign on some levels, to be able to understand the zodiac sign that is opposite in the zodiac wheel. So a Libra new moon, it's going to be at 28 degrees. I said 8:25 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And 28 degrees, for those that may or may not know, is the end of that zodiac sign, almost to the end. We had a solar eclipse back on September 21st. That was at 29 degrees of Virgo. That is the last degree of Virgo. So the new moons are beginning to move backwards, because they move backwards. So that's a separate conversation. But the new moon, it says that over the next 4 weeks, we're really looking at life, experiencing life through the lens of Libra, relationships, connection, putting things in balance. At the time that the sun arrives in Libra, I realize that's almost a month ago, it is equal day and night, no matter whether you're in the southern hemisphere or the northern hemisphere, because it's the equinox. So we have that sense of balance. Every sign of the zodiac leads us to the next sign of the zodiac. So with the order of, and sort of the maybe there's a better word for purity, so the order and structure and cleanliness, so to speak, of Virgo, we have the harmony and the peace of Libra. So we have Libra as a major focus. It could be that on some level over the next 4 weeks, we need to focus on relationships. And relationships come in a lot of different forms. And you've maybe heard me say there is the capital R relationships in our life. So these are our primary relationships. Very often are romantic relationships, or if you're in a partnership, not everybody is. And also our small r relationships. Our small r relationships are the people where we're really sort of connecting to on more of a surface level, but that's where we begin to develop social skills. And Libra is a sign that on some level teaches us the power of social skills in addition to compromise negotiation. Libra is ruled by Venus, and this new moon will bring us to the energy of Venus in Libra. Venus is in its own sign, so Venus is very strong, so it's going to be very Venusian over the next 4 weeks. Relationships, partnerships, beauty, charm, grace. Beauty, of course, is a subjective word, but maybe on some level, how do you create beauty in your life? How do you create beauty in your surroundings? And when I always, I think Libra doesn't get its fair due in astrology, quite honestly. And when I was teaching my Saturn masterclass, I've done it a few times, but when I did it for the first time, I really realized the power of Libra, because through the energy of Venus, its ruler, it's the importance of being polite. And I mean that in like the best possible way. And I'm saying this as a New Yorker, even though I'm not in New York at the moment. And I remember when I moved to New York for the first time, it's very much a city where you have to go after what you want. And I'm from DC originally, the DC area, and when we would go into the metro, you would wait for people to come out of the doors, and then you'd go in. But in New York, you just pushed your way through. It's very Mars, it's very Aries. And so I remembered that even as a New Yorker, there is power in holding the door for somebody. There's power in helping somebody with their things. I realize, it's an urban environment. You sort of, do the right, in the right circumstances, of course. But there's power in that. I think that reminds us that we're all human beings, and we need to, and this is maybe more of a bigger topic, we need to learn to be able to live together. We need to learn to be able to talk to each other. We need to learn to be able to understand where we're each coming from. And that's the real power of Libra. So that's our bigger focus over the next 4 weeks, especially with the energy of Venus in Libra. And that will be on some level applicable to our own life. It's a lens, it's an energy, it's a vibe, and it's very different than the last 4 weeks, because that last 4 weeks, that lunar month that we just came out of, began with a solar eclipse on September 21st. They're not separated, even though we're in a new, or will be in a new lunar month tomorrow. It is a lunar month that in a way is built within the story that is unfolding through the Virgo eclipse. That Virgo eclipse, even though it's 4 weeks ago, it's our big arc as we go into February, putting things into order, really rising up to a better level within ourselves. If we have a skill or a talent or something that we need to do on a day-to-day level, how do we do it better? Virgo, my joke about Virgo is that it's a secret Scorpio. There is that obsessive quality with the Virgo archetype. So on some level, we're all like trying to get better at something. However that's applicable to your own life. And this is something that's taking us over the next 4 months. Yeah, 4 months at this point. How do we get better at ... whatever it is in our life that we need to get better at? So with Libra, we now have a sense of our plan, our focus, our structure, and now we need to put things in balance. Now we need to really, maybe in the sense of the social side of Venus, get help, make connections, forge bonds, forge relationships. And maybe, this is a little bit of a jump into the Scorpio season, but this is a Libra new moon that is overlapping for most of Scorpio season. I forget when the Scorpio new moon is. It's towards the end of Scorpio season. But Scorpio takes the energy of connection and relationship with Libra, and then it gets into intimacy, vulnerability, trust, the things that happen behind closed doors or things that happen between two people. And we need Scorpio from the perspective of Libra because it helps us to really make strong connections. Because otherwise, if it was just Libra, our connections would be pretty surface level. So there's the new moon, check, and depending on where Libra is in your own astrology, that area is going to see a new beginning, a new focus, a renewal. And then we have Neptune going back into Pisces. So for most of us, we're not really noticing Neptune. I had a conversation with a client. She's like, oh no, Neptune's going back into Pisces. What does this mean for me? I was like, look, Neptune was in Pisces for 13 years. It's already a story is already unfolded in your life wherever Neptune is in your astrology. It could be career, it could be relationships, it could be health and wellness. Neptune is part of a cohort of planets. It's called the evolutionary planets, Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto, where their role is to get us to grow and evolve. And I talked about this, I think it was last week. I talked about Pluto, and I think everybody was like, nope, I don't want to talk about Pluto. But Neptune does its work differently than Pluto and Uranus. Neptune dissolves the boundaries between our physical plane and our non-physical plane. We don't live in just a physical world. That's, of course, that's up for you to discover, but it's interesting that it's spooky season, a time when we're looking at ghost stories or we're celebrating Halloween or Samhain or whatever, and looking to pull back the veil. Because when we get to the water signs, particularly when we get to Scorpio and Pisces, these are the last two water signs, we get to signs that really open up our intuition. They make us more aware that there's something that's not physical, it's not tangible. There's maybe something more to this world. And so with Neptune, we begin to question, it's an evolutionary planet, so it's trying to get us to grow and evolve and maybe not be so stuck in what I call the small self. The small self is the ego. So whatever has been unfolding over the last 13 years, it's been taking place on a very subtle level. Maybe it's been about the self in the sense that you've needed to really transcend an older or a smaller version of yourself. Maybe you needed to learn to have compassion. Maybe you needed to learn to open up your intuition, for example. So depending on where Neptune is, where Pisces is in your astrology, Neptune going back there is over the next 3 months, because Neptune will leave Pisces on January 26th of 2020, January 26th of 2026. So Neptune is going to, so there's a story that needs to be wrapped up, because Neptune moves so slowly that Neptune is not going to go back to where it was. Neptune's not going to go back into Pisces in our lifetime, because it takes 164 years, I believe, to go around the zodiac. So when I go through each of the 12 zodiac signs, we'll just kind of quickly acquaint ourselves with a larger story. And it's for you to reflect, to listen for Neptune, because Neptune is not something that you'll be able to quantify or even intellectualize. Neptune is a feeling, it's a sense that something has perhaps greatly shifted and evolved in a key area of your life. And that was meant to reveal something. Ultimately, to have compassion, to become aware that we're not just a singular person, that our emotions or our thoughts or our choices have impacts on others, takes us to the higher side of Pisces. It takes us to the higher side of Neptune. So we have Neptune going back into Pisces, and then we also have Scorpio season. So this is what I was saying in the introduction. I was like, how is it Scorpio season already? Because I am a Scorpio, but I'm born at the end of Scorpio. So the sun going into Scorpio, and this is something that I've spoken about periodically. For me, I love the zodiac. Why do I love the zodiac? Because it is this rich archetype that has within it a lot of deep wisdom and knowledge that I think on some level, maybe this is more of an esoteric comment, is a transmission. And the zodiac, it starts with Aries, it ends with Pisces. And so each sign is like a step. So each zodiac month, so each season, it's Scorpio season, Libra season, Virgo season, etc., is a step forward. It's progressive. Each sign opens the next sign. To start in Aries on some level is to start over. It's to begin again. It's to find ourselves. It's to find our individuality. It's our action. And it's to start a long journey that will take us all the way through the signs to Pisces. And Pisces, it's like climbing a ladder, and Pisces represents the top of the ladder symbolically. To get to Scorpio, it means that we come to a sign. It's a water sign, which I mentioned a few moments ago. It's a water sign. And in this, water is always the sign that precedes new beginnings. I'll come back to that. But this water sign, the Scorpio energy, it acts as a place where we really need to look within. And Scorpio as a step in the ladder helps us to really question ourselves. My joke about Scorpio, when I try to explain Scorpio or even the 8th house to my clients, is like, imagine a life where nothing ever happens. Imagine a life where every day is the same and you don't do anything and there is no challenges. Do you grow? Absolutely not. So the role of Scorpio is to challenge us, and I mean that in the best possible way, to get us to look within, to question ourselves. And it's where the self, which is symbolized by the fire signs, by Leo, it needs to face its unconsciousness, and that's Scorpio. And Scorpio is the only sign of the zodiac that has 3 animals. And maybe you've heard me talk about this before. It has the scorpion, which everybody knows about. It also has the eagle. And the eagle represents the Scorpio that has worked on itself. It's transcended itself. That's why sometimes people say, oh, Scorpio is like, they're terrible people, but, but it's not all of them. And I'm like, well, I am a Scorpio, so be careful. But when we get to the eagle, we've made this move from the scorpion, which is the ego. It's the small self, into the eagle, which is the higher self. The eagle is the only animal that can fly the highest. It can stare at the sun. So it symbolically represents a big arc from the scorpion, which is more reactive, more emotional. It strikes, it uses its stinger. And we all, and you might be thinking, but I'm not a Scorpio. How is this relevant to me? Because it's an archetype that's contained within our astrology. It's an archetype that's contained within life. It's an archetype that's contained within us. So we are all on a journey of evolution. You're not the same person that you were 15, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, maybe not even the same person you were last year. We're all seeking and exploring. That's why very often we're looking towards astrology to help us find answers. Not that astrology has all the answers, but it's very often why people come to astrology. So Scorpio then represents a space where we're really seeking and searching answers, but Scorpio says the answers come from within. So with Scorpio, the small s self, the ego has to transform. It has to transcend itself. And in order to do that, it needs to become the phoenix. And so keep this in mind as we go through Scorpio season, as we come to the Scorpio new moon a month from now. And so even this week, when the sun goes into Scorpio, we will also have the moon in Scorpio, Mars in Scorpio, sun square Pluto. That's a lot of scorpionic energy that's really concentrated around the middle of this week. Just sort of sit with this. Like, where am I in life? Am I the scorpion? Am I the eagle? Am I making the decision to step into the fire so I can become the phoenix? Because we're still on the wheel of incarnation, we will have moments where we are the scorpion. We will have moments where we are the eagle. We don't leave the wheel until we can get to Pisces completely at peace. I know that's a big ask, but that's sort of the greater esoteric mission of life. So a lot of things can sometimes come up during Scorpio season, and it's no coincidence that this is a time that different cultures, different festivals have celebrated to really mark this transition from the light to the dark. In Scorpio, and this is a little bit of a mental gymnastics, but Scorpio is the 8th sign of the zodiac. Scorpio's 8th sign is Gemini, and it represents that power of choice. And that's, we don't become the phoenix because somebody pushed us to become the phoenix. We have to make the choice to become the phoenix, so that we can ultimately become the eagle. So a little bit more of an esoteric look at Scorpio season, but I'm big on food for thought and using a lot of tools in the toolbox to be able to work and to discover and to open up spaces within. And this is the journey that we're always on together each week, and especially as we work our way across the zodiac and we get to Pisces season. Pisces has got a lot of stuff going on in the sky, whether it's Neptune going back into Pisces, whether it's Saturn, it's back in Pisces, we're having Pisces eclipses. So there's sort of this bigger esoteric question of how are we getting into Pisces? Because if we do not do the work, we don't strip away the small s self, we don't step into the fire, then we go into Sag, Cap, Aquarius, and ultimately Pisces in a state of illusion. And that's where Pisces, it has part of its archetype, the archetype of illusions. And then when we realize we're in illusions, we got to start the journey all again, Aries, and go all the way back. So bigger look at things. Like I said, this week we have that Libra new moon on Tuesday, the 21st. That brings us even into Wednesday, Thursday. We've got that Scorpio moon just in time for Scorpio, the sun going into Scorpio late on the 22nd, but for most of the world, it's going to be on the 23rd. And then we actually have a Sagittarius moon weekend. And I always love the interplay between Scorpio and Sagittarius, because Sagittarius is wisdom and knowledge. It is the light. It is the archetype of the stars. And in order to find the stars, we need to first go through Scorpio. And so Sagittarius's wisdom and knowledge is the fruit of our time in Scorpio. So may we use it well over the next 4 weeks. So that is your look at the astrology of this week, and we will go through each of the 12 zodiac signs so we can see where this is unfolding, and starting with Aries. Aries, so Mars is your planet, and as I record this, Mars is at 19 degrees of Scorpio. So by November 4th, which is I think about a week and a half from now, so give or take, Mars will be in Sagittarius. Especially when the sun goes into Scorpio on the 22nd, late 22nd, beginning of 23rd, it is a season for you to do a lot of deep inner work and examination. So listen to what I said about, again, a little bit more of an esoteric look at the astrology, but listen to what I said about this idea that Scorpio has to do a work in order to transcend itself, because that's going to be your key throughout November, and I would even go so far as to say with the Scorpio new moon later in November. So that said, we do have a Libra new moon. This Libra new moon will be on the 21st, and that Libra new moon opens up a 4-week period that's focused on relationships. Relationships come in a lot of different forms. If you have a primary relationship, so a committed partnership, this is a time where that part of your life takes focus, and maybe a lot of things are going on in the relationship, or a lot of things are going on with your partnership. If that is not the case or relevant for your life, it could be that this is a time where new people are coming into your life, or it is a time to bring people into your life because you can't do everything alone. You got like Mars in Scorpio right now. It's a lot of soul searching. And even though I think on some level the 8th is a really powerful work to look within, I think even the 8th sign, Scorpio is your 8th sign. We're not meant to do life alone. We're not meant to even kind of go through the 8th alone. We're not meant to go through Scorpio alone. So there's that, and then there's Neptune going back into Pisces. It's a little bit harder to pin down because you have to really reflect on how have you noticed a shift in your life 2011, 12, all the way to roughly now. because Neptune has been in your 12th sign of spirituality, coming to the end of things. And again, listen to my introduction where I talked about sort of the zodiac on a larger level, because to come to Pisces is to free yourself from the things that you have been carrying that you don't want to bring with you. It is to open up to the world beyond this world. It is to cultivate compassion, intuition. Every Aries has lived this time differently, but the next 3 weeks, next 3 months represent some sort of personal chapter that needs to come to a resolution, because Neptune will never be in Pisces in your lifetime. But do not forget, and this is kind of a separate conversation, that Neptune is going into Aries. It's been in Aries since March, end of March. So you're in a new time in your life where your relationship with power and desire and individuality is at the start of a big evolution. Taurus. So Venus is your planet, and Venus, it's still in Libra, and so the energy of your sign is really being focused on your 6th sign of work and health and projects and being able to kind of get the things that you need to do. The thing about Taurus is that this might be a time when there's a lot of responsibilities that are being asked of you, a lot of duties that are being asked of you, but it doesn't mean that you can't find some pleasure in it, because to be ruled by Venus on some level is also to know your value and worth, or know the value and worth of your time, and maybe even to enjoy yourself while you're doing the things that you need to do. Venus will shift into Scorpio. This will be in the beginning of next month, so on the 6th, so then it's a different shift. But that said, we are going to have a Libra new moon, and this Libra new moon will be in your 6th sign. Having a new moon in the 6th sign means that over the next 4 weeks, it's really getting things done, getting things organized, making sure that you're being attentive to the details, being attentive to the duties and responsibilities on the day-to-day level, and on some cases, really taking care of your health and wellness. Keep in mind, and this is more of a larger comment, I said this in the introduction, that with Virgo, we had a Virgo solar eclipse a month ago, being our main arc into February. This is a time to really find precision, to clean things out, to streamline. And maybe with the Libra new moon, is to do it by creating beauty, feng shui, or really cleaning things out so there is more beauty, harmony, peace in your day-to-day life. Before I forget, because I almost did, Neptune going back into Pisces. Neptune is going back into your 11th sign. So this is Neptune in Pisces, that's 2011, 2012, all the way to 2025 and 2026. There has been some arc, quite possibly subtle, that has been around either friendship and connection or community, or even how you participate in the world. Maybe on some level it is opened up over the last 10, 15 years, giving you opportunity to participate more in the world, or maybe it's made you more disillusioned. But on some level, there's been some sort of arc of evolution around community and connection and your feeling of your place in the world. Gemini. So Mercury is your planet. Mercury is still in Scorpio. So the energy of your sign is pointed towards, I gotta do some quick math, towards your 6th sign. So it continues to be a period, I think, until the beginning of the November 4th. That's when Mercury goes into Sagittarius. This continues to be a time where you are really focused on the details, getting things done, or that's the idea at least. You have duties and responsibilities. You need to streamline your day-to-day life, your schedule, and you'll feel more of a shift towards relationships as you get into the first week of November. We have Mars there, and Mars typically, when it's in the 6th sign, you've got a lot of things to do, you've got a lot of energy. Give it a focus, put it towards a project, because when Mars is going through the 6th, if we're not being a little bit workaholic, and we don't have a place for this energy to go, and get really frustrated. So make sure that you're really using your Gemini brain to create some lists, get things done, and to focus that Mars energy towards projects. Libra new moon. This Libra new moon, Libra is a fellow air sign. This new moon is going to be in your fifth sign. The fifth sign says that over the next 4 weeks, that on some level, this is a time to get back to the things that light you up, that give you joy, that give you passion, that help you to express who you are. For some Geminis, this is about creativity. This is about really taking the next 4 weeks and getting involved, especially with all that Scorpio energy, getting involved in a creative project, something that really lights you up and gives you joy. For some Geminis, this could be about children and pregnancy. I realize that's not going to be relevant for everybody, but for those for whom that it is. And I love the fifth because it helps us to get back to who we are, especially if we feel burnt out, especially if we feel confused, and to really give this, especially with Venus there, to really express yourself, to cultivate beauty, and again, create some projects and structure over the next 4 weeks. The Neptune going back into Pisces means that Neptune is going back into your 10th sign. That's the thing about Neptune and the outer planets, Pluto and Uranus are the outer planets with Neptune, is that it's very specific to you, your life, and I would even say your soul's journey. And so the last 13 years, whatever has unfolded around your professional life, your public life, the responsibilities that you carry in the world, your career, your ambitions, and what has grown and evolved around that. Are we an illusion or are we not? And so what I've noticed, and it really depends on the Gemini, is that Neptune in the sign, because Neptune, when it gets in touch with the money signs or the career signs, Neptune is always like, I don't care if they pay you $1 million to do what you do or give you all the power in the world. First, it has to feed your soul. So whatever is happening, again, it's very specific to you, but it's a story that you need to sort of feel into and tease out, because the next 3 months represent the end of a great story, because Neptune will never go back into your career sign in your lifetime. Cancer. So the moon is your planet, and this week we have a new moon, and it is in a fellow cardinal sign. So Cancer is a cardinal sign. Libra, where the new moon is a cardinal sign, and Libra is something called your fourth sign. If you can imagine a wheel, the fourth sign represents the bottom. It supports you. It holds you up. It holds up your life. So not every time this year, sometimes it's earlier in October, sometimes it's late in September, you'll have the Libra new moon, but this is typically the time of year where you need to focus on your home environment and family. And maybe a new moon can mean that over the next 4 weeks you're planning a move, or you need to refocus your attention on home and family. Venus is in this space, so there is an element of beauty. Not that Venus is always beauty, but sometimes it is to create beauty or even to create peace and calm in your home environment, because of course beauty is very subjective. But over the next 4 months, next 4 weeks, it could also be a focus on family, the past, and memories. On a deeper level, Cancer is just to remind you to make sure that you're getting nourished. You're really feeling the support in your life. And I realize, we all live different lives and things get complicated, but how do you then renew this part of your life if you're not getting the support that you need? Neptune is going back into Pisces. Pisces is your 9th sign. It's really hard to see. You have to sit and meditate and reflect on what Neptune has been doing over the last 13 years. But on some level, the arc of evolution has been around faith, truth, meaning. What do you believe in? What do you stand for? Your relationship with the world. And maybe there's what you believed in 13 years ago is not what you believe in now, or how you saw the world 13 years ago is not what you see now. Maybe you need to open up to something. Maybe, I don't know if that's for you to see what that story is, because Neptune will spend the next 3 months here, and then when it will leave on January 26th, and then it goes into Aries, your career sign, which is a different conversation for a different date. Leo. Leo, so the sun is your planet, and the sun is about to, one, have a new moon, two, it's about to go into Scorpio. So for you, Leo, Scorpio is your fourth sign. If you can imagine a wheel, I said the same thing to Cancer, your neighbor sign. If you can imagine a circle, the fourth sign represents the base and foundation. It holds up your life. So roughly this time of year, end of October, beginning of November, is a time for you to put your focus on your home, whether that's a literal statement, whether that's a metaphoric statement, and to make sure that you're getting this part of your life feels that it feeds you, it nourishes you, it holds things up. Over the next 4 weeks, and especially as you get into the rest of November, maybe there's a change in the household, maybe there's a move, maybe you're thinking about changing your environment, rearranging the furniture, maybe you need to get into the deeper stuff that we all carry, especially around home and family, past and memories. Mars is in the space of Mars, has been, let's say, poking at things since the end of September. Then there's this Libra new moon. This Libra new moon is in something called your third sign. So the next 4 weeks are through a sign for you that is very busy. Maybe you'll have a lot of places to go, errands to do over the next 4 weeks. Maybe it's phone calls, maybe it's messages, maybe it's conversations. That's more of a day-to-day look at things, but on some level, the next 4 weeks are about voice. How are you using your voice? Are people hearing you? How do you communicate? How do you write? How do you think? For some of you, that's about taking classes over the next 4 weeks. For some of you, it's about, actually speaking and writing and doing and using your voice. For some of you, maybe it's just a little bit more of philosophical. Venus is in this space, so on some level, it is to use your voice to promote peace. Peace comes in a lot of different forms. It is to negotiate, it is to compromise, or it is to use your voice in a beautiful way. At the end of the day, you're Leo, and don't forget, whether you are Leo rising or Leo sun, part of the big sort of structural points of this life is to find yourself. It is to express yourself, and is for you to shine, remembering that there's only one you in the world. Neptune, before I forget, Neptune going back into Pisces, it goes back into something called your eighth sign. Saturn is there, so Neptune and Saturn are still very close together in the sky. Over the last 13 years, and I've been saying this to the other signs because Neptune is so subtle. It works, it's like the moon. It sort of works in that in-between space. It's atmospheric, it's emotional, it's spiritual. It's not concrete, it's not physical. So over the last 13 years, there's been some sort of personal evolutionary arc on a deeper emotional level. Maybe your emotional psychic landscape, as it was in 2011, 2012, is not what it is today. You've done a lot of work, a lot of healing, a lot of releasing. At least that is the idea, because Neptune can really help us to go beyond ourselves. The eighth, which is Pisces for you, is where we face ourselves. Saturn is there at least until February, and it is that really important work that helps us to grow on a soul level. I realize that's a bigger point. So over the next 3 months, because Neptune will go back into Aries on January 26th, it is to wrap up a grand story about a lot of inner work, transformation, working on the inner emotional landscape, because that work that you did, you will not need to come back and do it again. So release what you need to release, because it really sets you up for a very different, let's say, Neptune and Aries for the next 14 years. Virgos, was it you last week? No, it was Libra last week. I always missed. Virgos. So Mercury is your planet. Mercury is still in Scorpio. This will be until November 4th. And so this continues to be a time where it's very important how you think, how you listen, and how you communicate. On some level, I'm saying this as a Scorpio, Mercury plus Scorpio, and Mars is also in Scorpio. It can be a little obsessive. And on a good day, you're really focused, you're really getting to the bottom of mystery, you are really, sharp in your thinking, but it's also to be careful, because you can say things that are a little bit too blunt, a little bit too direct, unless that's exactly what you need to do. So this is a time where, on a very surface level, it's been about your education, you're taking classes, you're reading, or maybe it's about the psyche and conversations and secrets and the things that you need to talk about and the things that you need to share. And maybe it's about therapy. Maybe it's about really working on some sort of research project, or really making sure that you are very attentive and focused in the words that you are saying and the thoughts that you are having. There will be a shift when Mercury goes into Sagittarius on November 4th. So there's that. And then there's this Libra new moon that we are having tomorrow, October 21st. It says that over the next 4 weeks, the sort of the mini priority is money, income, material stability, and security, because Libra is your money sign. There's themes of money and income that are part of that solar eclipse that we had in Virgo on September 21st. I think on some level, this solar eclipse was really trying to move things. At least that's the idea. And then with the new moon in Libra and the energies over the next 4 weeks, like, it is to get very clear about what's of value and what's of importance. The second sign is money and income, but on some level, it's about knowing how to invest yourself. Where do you put your time? Where do you put your energy? With whom do you put your time? With whom do you put your energy? It is to create some structure and some grounding, and maybe some necessary structure and grounding after the back and forth and up and down of eclipse season. What else is there? Oh, Neptune and Pisces. So Pisces is your relationship sign. This is something that we've been talking about a lot over the last month and a half, if not longer, because you had an eclipse in this space on September 7th. Saturn is back in this space. Saturn has been in this space since 2023, and now Neptune is. So the thing about Neptune, like, Saturn has only been in your relationship sign for 3 years, but Neptune has been there for 13 years. It's really hard to pin down individually what that means, because it connects to something very subtle in your life, but it also connects to something that it's like a necessary evolution. Maybe relationships mean something to you now in 2025 than they did in 2011, 2012, when Neptune first went to Pisces. Maybe you needed to arc through stories where you really needed to see people for who they really are, as opposed to sometimes when Pisces is part of the relationship story, where we see somebody as their higher self on their best day, but we forget that they're human beings. Maybe there's been stories around boundaries. Maybe you met the love of your life. Maybe it's something completely different. This is the thing. You need to sort of reflect on what is it that has been, shifted and transformed and evolved around how I connect and relate to other people, or what does a relationship mean for me over the last 13 years, because Neptune will be in Pisces just for the next 3 months, and then when it leaves, it will never return in our lifetime. Libra. So Venus is your planet, and as I record this, Venus is in Libra. So you have your planet in your home sign. It typically gives you a sense of boost or energy, a need to take the reins in your life to move forward. And maybe it feels like maybe the reins are being taken in the sense that, like, the horses are out of the barn and things are starting to move and starting to go. We have a Libra new moon tomorrow, and this Libra new moon on some level says that this is a time for personal reset, whether you are a Libra sun, happy birthday, Libra, or if you are Libra rising. If your birthday is late in Libra, so your birthday is the 20th, the 21st, the 22nd, this is a year ahead that is about powerful new beginnings, because you have the energy of the new moon. But even if your birthday is not at this time, or you're Libra rising, take this energy as a personal reset, a time to get refocused, to start over, to get a sense of renewal, especially if you have felt stuck. I don't know, depending on what's going on in your life. This energy is a bit dynamic, and on some level it plays off that Aries full moon that we had 2 weeks ago in your sign of relationship. Neptune in Pisces is a little bit harder to pin down because Neptune is very atmospheric, very emotional, very spiritual. But interestingly, Neptune in Pisces, over the last 13 years, it's been in your sign of health and wellness. That's going to be specific for whatever the story is in your life. I just noticed with some of my Libra rising clients, this is not the for everybody, sometimes there's like the weird like thing that you can't figure out. It's like, why do I suddenly have this allergy, or why does this? And Neptune talks about boundaries, and those boundaries can be emotional, those boundaries can be physical, those boundaries can be psychic. There's been some sort of arc of evolution around your relationship with health and wellness, and that's a very broad topic. It could be physical, it could be emotional, it could be how you show up in life over the last 13 years. It's to sort of feel and sit with what has shifted around your body, how you occupy your body, how you take care of your body, how you occupy your life, and how that's, something has shifted since 2011 and 2012. Scorpio. So Scorpio, it is almost your season. I was saying this in my newsletter. I was like, how is it our birthday again? Like I think I'm somewhere in June or August, but here we are. It's almost Scorpio season. The sun will go into Scorpio late on the 22nd, at least here on the East Coast of the United States. So for the rest of the world, it will be the 23rd of October. The sun goes into our sign and it joins Mars. So Mars has been in Scorpio, I think since the end of September. Yes, September 22nd. And Mars in Scorpio, just on paper, we'll have to see how you feel. It typically gives Scorpio a lot of energy, a lot of power, a lot of drive. Like Scorpio's holding the card, so to speak. And this has been since September. So see how you have watched this play out, particularly throughout October. Do you feel renewed? Do you feel energized? Do you really want to start to put your focus towards a greater target because Mars is giving you the action, the power, and the drive? But maybe, we need to get to the sun going into Scorpio to really give that Mars more power. And then, to be fair, there's going to be a Scorpio new moon later in November, but we'll get there. That said, Libra season, and particularly this Libra new moon, it's in your 12th. So there's an irony with the astrology at the moment for Scorpio, because on one hand, you're ready to go. You're ready to like move forward, take action. But with the new moon in your 12th, it says that over the next 4 weeks, you've got your foot in the past, or you got your foot in an old story, and you're trying to wrap something up. Libra also represents your spirituality, endings, and I put that in air quotes because it prepares us for the new beginnings that are symbolically represented by a planet or the sun going into Scorpio. Over the next 4 weeks, it is to shed something. It is to release. It is to make space. It is to open up your spirituality. It is to rest on some level. And it adds a little bit more of a quieter energy to Scorpio birthday season. And so maybe you just want to kind of chill out or not have any big things going on during your birthday. I don't know. You do you, of course. But Libra says don't forget about your inner world, your spiritual world, and really cultivating time and energy in that space because Venus is in that space. Speaking of Venus, Venus is a relationship planet, so some of this clearing out and making space could be related to relationship. It could be something from the past, and to have new beginnings, it also means something needs to release. So sit with this and how it makes sense for your own life. Then there's Neptune going back into Pisces. Pisces represents something called your fifth sign. Every Scorpio will live Neptune and Pisces differently. It's been 13 years, and Neptune, by January 26th of 2026, it will be out of Pisces in our lifetime. But the fifth represents the self. It's the ego. And I mean that in the best possible way. It helps you to remember who you are, what lights you up, what gives you joy, what gives you passion. But there's been this story around identity and self that has really quietly and subtly woven its way through your life since 2011 and 2012, because that's when Neptune first went to Pisces. Maybe you can look back at 2011, 2012 and like not recognize yourself. You're like, oh my God, like I'm a completely different person. Maybe it's something else, but that's the thing. Neptune is very specific to you, your soul's journey, and the necessary evolution that needs to happen. Sagittarius. So Jupiter is your planet, and Jupiter, as we've been talking about since June, it's in Cancer. It'll be in Cancer until next year. So that said, let's talk about first this Libra new moon. Libra is something called your 11th sign. And your 11th sign, it represents your friends, your community, your sense of place in the world, but also your hopes and dreams. And sometimes people who have a very strong 11th house, these are people that are very involved in social issues and social causes, and they want to be involved in the world and humanitarianism. It really depends on the person. So on a very basic level, this new moon says that it's time to turn your attention towards your friends, your community, the groups that you are involved in. Venus is in this space, so it's a time for new friendships to come in, new people to come in, to get involved in new groups or new issues or new causes, because Libra has such a strong sense of justice, fairness, and equity. Then we are going to Scorpio season. Scorpio season represents the sign that occurs before your sign. So you are coming to the end of your personal calendar, and this is all getting you prepared for the sun's arrival in Sagittarius around the 22nd November. The 21st of September, of November, 21st of November is when the sun goes into Sagittarius. So there's that, and then we have Neptune going into Pisces, and Pisces is something called your fourth sign. And I've been saying this to the other signs, and you have to understand that Neptune works on a very subtle, liminal, intermediary plane. It's on the emotional, the spiritual, the esoteric, and so you need to get the geese outside. You have to feel into what Neptune and Pisces has meant for you over the last 13 years, because maybe your sense of home and family is something completely different than it was 13 years ago. Maybe your inner world, your inner sense of home and connection is something completely different than it was. Maybe the things that you carried around family or past or memories is not what you carry anymore, because ultimately Neptune is helping us to release, to let go, to transcend, to go beyond ourselves. So look for it, feel for it, but don't forget that Saturn is also in this space. Saturn went back into Pisces on September 1st. So Saturn spends 3 years in a sign. Neptune spends 14 years in a sign. So it's a very different time scale, but they're both, kind of pretty close together in the sky at the moment. So in a way, Saturn is talking to Neptune. If you have made a lot of big inner shifts, big inner work, or feeling a sense of deeper connection within yourself, Saturn is like, well, how do we make this real? How do we make this concrete? This is how the two energies come together. But whatever you have done, whatever you have worked on, whatever you've released, Neptune will only be in Pisces for 3 more months, and you are coming to the end of some great story. And when Neptune leaves, it's not going to go back in Pisces in your lifetime. My lifetime, anybody's lifetime. Capricorn. So Saturn is your planet. We've been talking about this. Saturn is back in Pisces as of September 1st. So from September 1st until February 13th, you're wrapping up a story that began in March of 2023. On some level, this has been a time about education, learning, taking classes. For some of you, it's been about voice and communication. For some of you, it's been about really being in your voice, how you use your voice. For some of you, it's been about, because Pisces is very intuitive, to open up your intuition, to listen to your intuition. For some of you, maybe you started a manuscript. For some of you, maybe you're teaching classes. It's to really see how this has been unfolding in your life. And for some of you, this is about the power of choice and hopefully to make the right choices, because the choices that you make and the choices that you have made while Saturn is in Pisces set you up for the next big chapter of your life. Saturn going to Aries represents a shift of focus in your life. And for maybe some of you Capricorns, there's some big shifts already that are unfolding. There's Neptune in Pisces going, Neptune is, wow, I can't speak. Neptune is going back into Pisces, and as as opposed to Saturn's time in Pisces, which is 3 years in total, Neptune spends 14 years in a zodiac sign. So very different timescales, but right now Saturn and Neptune are very close together in the sky. So you could say on some level you are Neptune, or you're really living life through the energies of Neptune at the moment. Neptune blurs the boundaries between our physical world and our non-physical world. So maybe this is a very spiritual time for you. Maybe you're doing a lot of meditation. Maybe you're opening up to something. Maybe it's illusions. I'm sure that's not you, but there is the other side of Neptune. And Neptune always says that we need to, on a higher level, we need to transcend the self. We can't be at the level of the ego, the I want, I need with Neptune, because things get very weird. So use the next 3 months to really transcend yourself on some level, to rise to a higher level within yourself, because it is on some level an opportunity. Neptune will not be back in Pisces when it leaves in January in our lifetime. We also have this Libra new moon. Libra is a major major sign in your astrology. It represents career. So to have a new moon in Libra, which is typically sometime at the end of September, beginning of October, it is a reset in your professional life, your public life. And so over the next 4 weeks, your professional life, your career takes priority. Maybe you are making a change in your career. Maybe you are getting recognized for something. You have Venus up there right now, so you have a lot of power and strength with this new moon to use it positively to your advantage, to really focus on your ambitions, for example. But I think with the Neptune side, there's sort of like a funny dichotomy, because the 10th is typically Capricorn's domain. It's your worldly life. It's the title after your name. We got like Neptune in your ear, and it's saying like, don't forget, you can't take this with you. So it's to really look at where you're prioritizing things, where you're putting your energy, because in reality, that's where we make our lives. Aquarius. So Saturn is your planet, and Saturn is in Pisces just until February 13th, and you are wrapping up a story that has been very much focused since March of 2023 on money, income, material stability, and security, value, and worth. At this point, you know the story. But you're still in it for the next four-ish months. Do you know your value and worth, Aquarius? What has shifted around money and income, property, assets, resources, even if it's emotional or philosophical, over the last 3 years or 2.5 years at this point? Keep that in mind, because Neptune is going back into Pisces, which is, Neptune and Saturn are very close together in the sky right now. I forget. The last time they were conjunct was 1988, so it doesn't happen very often. They're very close together in the sky right now, and on some level, like, you are living through the lens of Neptune. Neptune is a very different planet than Saturn. Saturn is about our material and physical world, our achievements, our work, maturity, responsibility. And Neptune dissolves things. It dissolves the boundaries between our physical world and our non-physical world. So at some level, you are being opened up, Aquarius, to go beyond this world, to value things differently. And maybe if you look at the long arc of Neptune and Pisces, maybe the things that you valued 2011, 2012 is not what you value now. A lot of times our values are cultural or shaped by our family, and we all have to work to discover what's truly of important of and value to us. So I said this with other signs, it's hard to see concretely what Neptune has meant for you in Pisces over the last 13 years. Maybe it's been literally through some sort of story around how you earn a living or your relationship with money, having it, not having it. And maybe it's about really finding your value and worth, because to know your value and worth, of course, greatly influences our relationship with money and the material plane. We also have a we also have a Libra new moon. Libra represents your ninth sign, so it's a fellow air sign. So the next 4 weeks is a time to really look beyond yourself, look up. It's a time of philosophy, faith, truth, meaning. Maybe you're getting on a plane to answer big questions. Maybe you are opening big tomes to try to answer big questions. But generally, when there's a new moon in this sign, you're in seeking, searching, and exploring mode. Aquarius and Libra is where the new moon is. These are two signs along with Sagittarius, but that's just a sort of other information, that are very driven by justice and fairness. And so maybe on some level for some of you, there is a question over the next 4 weeks: what is fair? What is just? Are things right? What do I believe in? What do I stand for? And especially with that Neptune energy, it's to really learn to listen to your heart, and maybe to go beyond that very rational, analytical Aquarius mind. Pisces, I totally screwed up last week, and I'm so sorry. I kind of got my wires crossed, so mea culpa, but hopefully we'll get it right this week. So Pisces, Jupiter is your planet, so this continues to be a time into next year where your energies are focused on a place that talks about the expression and the definition of self and identity. Oh, it is for you on some level to prioritize yourself. And I mean that in the best possible way. It is to do the things that light you up and give you joy. Pisces, I've been saying this quite a lot over the last few months, and it's important for you to hear it again. You've been through a lot, at least astrologically speaking. You've had Saturn in your sign since 2023. You've had eclipses in your sign since September of last year. So life is kind of throwing a lot at you, at least on paper. And I think on some level Jupiter is saying to you, but part of this time is to make sure that you're getting what you want, what you need, so you can replenish that spark inside of you, so you can refine your faith, even if faith is just like it's all going to work out. For you, Pisces, with Saturn back in Pisces at least until February 13th, this is a time to wrap up some story about new beginnings in your life, having to take new responsibilities and to stand on your own 2 feet. Things will shift as we get into the new year. We'll get to that when it's the right time. But then there's Neptune going back into Pisces, and Saturn is very concrete. Saturn is, I typically, when I get my Pisces rising and Pisces sun clients, not always, but 9 times out of 10, you really see the storyline shift in 2023 when Saturn goes into Pisces. Neptune, however, has been there since 2011, 2012. It's a little bit harder to pin down because unlike Saturn, which is a planet that's about our material and physical lives, Neptune works in the intermediary. It's the space that's between this world and the next world. It's emotional, it's spiritual. So there's been some personal arc of evolution and change that's been unfolding since 2011, 2012. Maybe you got into astrology. Maybe you got more into spirituality. Maybe you feel that you've been in the desert for the last 10 years. The thing is, you need to, in your own time, because it's something that's very specific for your own life, to try to feel out what this arc of evolution around Neptune and Pisces has been for you. Has it been some sort of new beginning that really began to come more into focus about 10 years ago? Has it been a change and transformation with your relationship with power and desire and want? Has it made you more sensitive? Has it opened your compassion? Has it overwhelmed you? It's going to be, again, specific for your own life. Then, and I should add, because I got this wrong last week, Pluto is now direct in your 12th. Your 12th is the last space of your astrology. It is your spirituality. So on some level, and this is going to be kind of like Neptune, very specific for your own life, Pluto has brought you to a space within your astrology that on some level is hidden, is invisible. So Pluto is trying to reveal the world beyond this world, for you to go beyond yourself, for you to open up. It's to, I mean, for some of you that's spiritual, for some that's your intuition, for some of you that is to release the things that you don't want to carry with you symbolically in your life, because the 12th can also represent our baggage, and Pluto is like, we gotta get rid of this. That's Pluto. And then we also have a Libra new moon. This Libra new moon is going to be in your, wait, I gotta do math. It's in your 8th. So in our astrology, we have these 12 spaces. You're a Pisces or a Pisces rising. That represents the primary space. It really helps us to understand where you are and where the rest of the astrology is. The role of the 8th is to get us to look within. It's to get us to face ourselves. Now, here's the thing. Now, Neptune, or sorry, not Neptune, the new moon in this space, and typically there's a new moon in this space every end of September or maybe beginning of October. It changes each year. It initiates you into a 4-week period where it's an inner look, work on the psyche, a transformation, themes around trust, vulnerability, power, control. Maybe it's going to therapy. Maybe it's doing a lot of journaling. It's going to be specific for you. But the work that you do each time you go with the sun in Libra or Libra new moon represents a time where you traverse your inner psychic landscape. Venus is there right now. It typically gives some support. Maybe you feel that this is a time where you can talk to people or somebody is listening to you, and that can really help you to travel the space of the 8th. But it's a powerful new moon. It's sort of taking us beyond that Virgo solar eclipse that we had on September 21st. And that Virgo solar eclipse is saying that it's really about relationships. That's one of your main focuses as you go into February of next year. And so maybe with Libra season, relationships is also to look what's underneath, what you're not looking at, your unconscious, the things that happen between two people, the conversations that need to have. But it's a little bit of an emotional, intense next 4 weeks. But I think on some level, it's really talking about the bigger shifts that we have been talking about with Saturn and Neptune in Pisces. So there you go. That is your look at the astrology of this week, October 20th through 26th, 2025. I feel like I keep jumping in 2026. But we will talk more next week about Scorpio season, the power of Scorpio, because we'll be fully in Scorpio season, and especially with Mars and Scorpio. And of course, you can always book a one-on-one consultation with me so we can really sit down and look at your astrology and look at it holistically, and how is your life built, and perhaps even for what purpose? What's your meaning? What's your purpose? So you can go to my website, empoweringastrology.com. The link is in the show notes. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Spotify, I'm on YouTube, and I will see you all next week. Bye-bye.